Hello, and welcome to another episode of FPC Talks. We are a downtown church in the heart of Huntington, West Virginia, USA. If you are looking for a church or are interested in joining a church, please check out our live stream worship service every Sunday at 10 a.m. on this YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon so that you'll be notified when we go live. Also, feel free to reach out and contact us. We'd love to hear from you. I will leave a link in the description of this video with our website, our current website, but be on the lookout for a new website because we are about to launch a new website probably in the next few weeks, and we're excited to have that ready. My guest this afternoon is Mr. Alan Morrison. Alan and his family have been very active members of our church for many years. He has served in many leadership roles. Most currently, he is a member of the session, which is our representative governing body. Also, his wife, Catherine, taught 3 to 5 year old Sunday school for nearly 40 years, and I being one of those alumnus. And he's been her assistant for the last several years. He's also a very active member of our weekly Wednesday night program, Logos, as a table parent. And there are so many other things that I wanted to say in this intro, but I'm just excited to get to talking. So, Alan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for doing this series. It's been very enjoyable for me to watch.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate you being on today, so great. Let's start with your history. You once told me that it was your grandparents who joined the First Presbyterian Church in the 20s?
That's correct. They moved here as young adults, I think right before my dad was born, which was in 1923, so sometime in the early 20s.
Do you know the pastor, who the pastor would have been?
I'd have to look out there on the wall. I don't know who it would be. I think that's pre-Andy Bird, but I don't know who it was.
Okay.
I don't.
It's okay. We'll look at
the history book for that.
I remember your grandfather as the Tootsie Roll man. We talked about
my dad.
Oh, your dad.
Yeah,
okay.
My dad. Yeah.
Well, still.
Yeah, he was the Tootsie Roll guy. He made a lot of parents unhappy during Easter Sunday.
I remember that was one of my memories, early young memories of walking out of that door down out to Fifth Avenue. Where's the Tootsie Roll man? And I'd put that in my mouth and chew on it for 30, 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And your mother Adele was a great lover of music and the arts.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about serving with the young people, but I wanted to ask about your parents or
Sure.
grandparents. Did they serve the young people in that generation?
I don't have a lot of recollection of my grandparents. My grandmother was very active in the church. I see pictures of her around, women of the church, circles, things like that. I don't recall her being involved with youth. She may have been. My parents both were. They were high school advisors. I know that. I know that my dad was a Sunday school teacher for a long time. I still hear stories. They called him, his name was Webb. They called him Cobweb. So there was a lot of stories of his stories teaching Sunday school to high school students for a long time. So they were very active with the youth in the church for a long time.
Wonderful. In your own words, what are some of the major differences between church life then, or I'm asking about your parents, I guess, but still when you remember your church life then and church life now?
Let's see, the major differences that I can remember, first of all, the church was fuller. That's one thing that comes to my mind. There were more people at Sunday worship, more people in Sunday evening. We had a Sunday evening time together as families, and there were a lot of people that attended that. We did not have a Wednesday evening program that I can remember, but the Sundays were full. I mean, we came to Sunday school, we came to church, and then we came back every Sunday evening for a program with our people our age, and there was a meal served here, and that went on for a long time. And so that's the first thing that comes to my mind, is there were a lot more people here. I dream of the day when the sanctuary's full again, but that's what I remember. And of course the choirs, youth choir and adult choirs were full of my friends, and just a lot of participation. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. And Sunday school classes were full, and you were conspicuous in your absence if you weren't here.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Can you describe a little bit about a typical Sunday morning service when you were a youth, and I wrote like
Sure.
teenager?
Well, I'll go back a little bit. My earliest memories, the round room was, if I remember correctly, the round room upstairs was where we met for Sunday school, and there were peripheral rooms around the round room where we all met for our individual classes. We would meet in the large area of the round room, and then we would segregate off into the peripheral rooms in the round room for our Sunday school classes. Mm-hmm. That I do remember that, and there were little tables and chairs in there that we sat in, and I remember that. I remember a lot of my earlier Sunday school teachers, Nell Wharton and Mrs. Krieger. I remember, meeting with them, and then, I think later on we moved into the Sunday school building, maybe when we got a little bit older, is what I remember. So Sunday school was, from my earliest memory, Sunday school was a routine for us in our house. I don't remember a decision about, hey, are we going to go to Sunday school tomorrow, Sunday, on Saturday night or not. It was just a routine. We knew we got up and went to Sunday school and church, and I don't remember a Sunday when we didn't do it. I guess there were those, but I don't remember. But and then the downstairs friendship hall, I think we call it now, mm-hmm. was not too unlike what it is now. There was a little stage though, and a lot of the tile floor, and that's where donuts and coffee were served, and that room would be nearly full on the time between Sunday school and church, where there was a lot of fellowship going on between Sunday school and church, and donuts and coffee were served, and a lot of running around with the kids, and then church time was time for the whole family. I mean, there was not a children in worship, which I do think is a great program, but all the children were in the worship service in here, so you just, if you were not in the nursery, you had to figure out how to survive the worship time as a young person.
Yeah, I remember some of that too.
Yes. You had to learn how to behave and be quiet, or or not. So that's what I remember. And then of course Sunday afternoons were spent maybe visiting with my grandparents, or my mom and dad's parents didn't come to this church. My mom's parents didn't come to this church, but we'd go visit them if we maybe, and then come back for Sunday evening.
That's great. When you were talking about, I didn't put on this sheet, but the fellowship hall downstairs with the stage, and we're going to talk about the renovations later. Yeah. It just made me think, because were those stairs, so was the way to get back up here, because there were two separate buildings, so let me talk about that first, because I did have that in mind. You remember when the Sunday school building was not there, or at least...
Yeah, I don't remember when it wasn't there. I remember when it wasn't connected like it is now. The building was built, I'd have to look and see, but I don't remember when the building wasn't there, but it wasn't connected like it is now to our building. Oh, okay. The atrium was an open area, an outdoor area where you walked up from Fifth Avenue up a concrete walkway into what is now the atrium, and the buildings were separated. And then there was a connection, but it was a very... I don't want to say temporary, but it wasn't a connection like it is now, where you walked into an area where the buildings were connected. It was not like it is now.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your educational and your work background. You went to Marshall?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
I went to Virginia Tech and went away, and I can remember. One of the things that I recall, now that you mention it, is when I was first at Virginia Tech, one of the first pieces of mail I got was from this church.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting. They wrote all the recently departed college freshmen. They wrote them a letter and welcomed them to their school and let them know that they were praying for the students, and I thought that was really amazing. And I remember writing back I don't remember who wrote me. It wasn't Dr. Jones, but the secretary wrote me, and I wrote them back and thanked them. And my mom got a big kick out of the fact they must have called her and said, "Hey, your son actually wrote us back." And and so I remember that correspondence. But I went to Virginia Tech, stayed there for a while, but that was our stay there.
Okay. When did you meet Catherine?
I met Catherine downstairs in the youth room. We used to have a high school group or high school time called a coffee house. I don't know who actually put that together. It might have been our senior high advisors at the time that might have been the Mankins, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
They were our senior high advisors at one point. But we had a coffee house down there on a weekend, and there was a Wardlaw and Purdue came here and did a weekend thing a whole week-long thing for our congregation, including some time with the youth. And we had a coffee house, and I met Catherine. I saw her. I didn't meet her. Saw her there, recognized her, and then later on we started going out. I think I believe a junior in high school when we met downstairs in the coffee house.
Wow. So, and I said, well, you went to Virginia Tech, but she didn't go.
She went to Marshall. We dated throughout high school and off and on through college, and then made it permanent when I got out of school.
Oh, great. Now your children, Brooke and Jeff, are grown, and I remember them. They were also very active in our church growing up, and I remember Brooke playing piano on Sunday mornings, and that made a lasting impression on me.
Did it?
Oh yeah. I was very, very young.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that's so cool. She's like, I think she played. I remember the Raindrop Prelude. She played the Chopin Raindrop.
Do you really?
I do.
Wow.
Yeah. We sat right.
I have to tell her that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was very good at piano, very young, and carried it on. Karen Jones got her connected with a lady that was her teacher, Elaine Tutt. Elaine taught her, and she had a great time with Elaine, one of her most important people in her life. And Elaine taught her to play, and she had very long fingers like my mom, and could play and had a great touch. So it was one of my great joys was listening to Brooke play the piano.
Yeah. And I remember Jeff being on the Wimbledon. We watched that in the kitchen at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Briefly, I think it was broadcast.
It was.
I have a memory, I think, of watching that. Yeah.
You must have been young.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. What do you remember? Because I couldn't think of what year that was.
Around 2000.
Okay.
Something like that. What year were you born?
I would have been 15. I was 85. I was born in 85. So.
Around 2000, I think.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's great. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about church leadership.
Okay.
So, in your own words, what makes a good church leader, or what makes a good leader in general?
Well, let's see. A good leader in general, hopefully, is first of all someone that will assume leadership. I mean, somebody that will do the job. And Jesus Christ was the greatest leader, and he was a servant leader, someone who will lead by being a servant, and that's the person we all should be trying to emulate in every role that we assume, and especially as a leader, both in business and church and our families, our homes. That's what makes a good leader. And in church, there's roles we can all play as leaders and as participants in everything this church needs to do. So there's always a place for us all to be leaders.
All leaders, yeah.
All leaders, yeah.
We're sitting in this space. We're about 13, I think it was 13 years ago, that we had the renovation for the chancel.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to show this picture. So we had a smaller space here.
We did. Yes.
And people can see the doorway, and the balcony used to go all the way to the wall. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, don't have a picture. I'll maybe one of these days post a picture of what it looks like now, because you only see our little space right here.
Right.
But anyway, you were essential to that process we were talking about.
let's see. I don't believe I was on session at the time when the entire renovation was planned and discussed and decided to do. But I was around, and I'm involved in construction, and so I volunteered and got appointed as the construction manager, as the church liaison with the construction company that we picked, which was a job that I really enjoyed doing. Neighborgall Construction was picked as the contractor, and there was an architect out of Columbus, I believe, that developed the plans, and we were pretty much left alone to go from A to Z, from the plans that he had drawn and the sanctuary as it was, and we had a great time doing it. We obviously wanted to do it as quickly as we could, because we could not worship in here as soon as demolition started, and we wanted to get back in here as quickly as we could. And one of the things that the entire congregation and session wanted is that we accomplished everything that we wanted to accomplish without losing the I don't know if flavor is the right word, but losing the appearance and the flavor and the feeling that we all had for this sanctuary. And if you look at the picture, you could literally come into the sanctuary then and now and maybe not notice that the renovation had been done if you didn't look at the particular spacing and area that had been improved, because we tried to maintain the feeling of the sanctuary, which was very important to us. And it was we had a lot of fun doing it. Neighborgall was great to work with. We battled through some challenges, but it was really fun, and we did it on schedule and under budget, which is a credit to Neighborgall and the whole congregation.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the challenges?
Let's see. Two things I remember particularly is the way that the balcony was cut and shortened. If you notice in the pictures, and you might put it up there, the balconies used to go all the way to the south wall, and the way the balconies now are cut and curved and shortened, the way they hit the east and west wall, the architect really had not planned completely on what that connection and what that interface would be. They actually hit the stained glass windows at a difficult location, and so we had to work really hard to make that transition attractive and appropriate, and that was not planned for. That's one thing that we had to work on, and Neighborgall's carpenters did a really good job on both places, making that transition attractive and appropriate. An interesting thing that Mary Tonneson will tell you about when you talk with her, these little medallions that are around the front of the chancel,
we can
can see them. Yeah, you can see them on this current picture. There's about 50 of these medallions that were in the original chancel. If you look at the original picture, there's 3 different styles of medallions that were hand-carved wooden medallions by, I think it's Mary's uncle, if I'm not mistaken, that was the original architect. And the architect that did the planned renovation had counted and measured and had told me and Neighborgall and all the session that he had carefully planned the chancel renovation so that we would have enough of the medallions to do the renovation when we did this. Quickly after demolition, we laid it out and found out we were way short, 20 medallions short of having enough. And quickly tell you the story, we were in a little bit of a panic mode because the medallions are critical to the appearance of the chancel, and so we did not know what we were going to do. And Neighborgall knew that Quality Woods up in Winfield had just recently bought a computer that could take a picture of the medallion and do a computer reproduction of it.
Wow.
And so we gave them one of the medallions, and they put it on their table and took a computer generated picture and carved a reproduction of the one medallion and gave it to us, and it was terrible. It was an awful reproduction. We couldn't use that to begin with, so we started looking on the internet, and keep in mind, this was, like you said, 13 or 15 years ago. There were not some of the things there are now, and we found a place in Tennessee that alleged that they could make a reproduction of anything that we had out of polyurethane. Mm-hmm. And so I called them on the phone and told them what we had. I think I sent them a picture of what we had, and they said they could do it. So I sent them one of our wooden carved medallions by UPS down to them in Tennessee and asked them to take a look at it and see what they could do. And I was traveling on the road, and Catherine, my wife, called me and said, the place in Tennessee sent you your sample back. I said, oh, is there a note in the box? And she said, no, they didn't. So I called them on the phone and I said, you all sent me my sample back, could you not do it? And they said, that's not one of your samples, that's one of our reproductions. That's how good they were.
Yeah.
So they actually made about 20 or 25 polyurethane reproductions of the 3 different carvings that are now in the chancel here that you cannot literally tell if it's the polyurethane reproduction or the wood original carvings, and really saved us. And that was a really, really great save that we were able to find and make the flavor of the chancel stay. So proud of that.
When you had mentioned that to me a few weeks ago and told me that story, and I would have not known that.
Yeah.
That would, I mean, it unless you know what you're looking for, you cannot tell.
You cannot tell. It's really, really good. That's 2 interesting little stories.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I wanted to ask you maybe about the as a leader on the pastor nominating committee. Sorry, last year, and you were the chairman of the committee. So what was that like, participating in searching for a new minister?
Well, when I knew that when Skip was resigning and that there was going to be a pastor nominating committee, I told Catherine I did not want to be a part of that. That was an enormous responsibility in light of what our church has been through and what the responsibility was going to be like. I was intimidated by that thought, and lo and behold, when they did the vote, I was asked to do it, and I felt called and couldn't turn it down, even though it was not something that I particularly wanted to do. But I was very happy with the composition of the committee when it was decided. I mean, the 6 other people on the committee with me were an awesome committee to start the work with, even though I was still intimidated by the responsibility. And there was not a very good roadmap or very good instruction manual on how to do this, even though it's done frequently around the country. There's not really a great roadmap. So we just started working together and praying together and building a chemistry together as a committee, and following what little instruction we had, and following our heart and following God's lead and trusting God to lead us to, you hear and you are told that God will lead the right person to you, and that the right person's out there looking and you will be led to him or her as well. And we truly felt that happen. I mean, I can't tell you, we had written down what we were looking for and the age and the demographics of what we hope to find and the qualities of what we were looking for. And those are all vastly important when you start your search and you go through and read personal information forms of hundreds, literally over 100 of the candidates around the country that are looking to make a move, and you watch sermon after sermon after sermon, and all those things are important. So obviously there is truly, and there has to be, some divine assistance, and I don't mean assistance, but guidance and leadership to have something happen, and it happens. I mean, we didn't have a lightning strike or anything that when we pulled Parrish's bio out that told us, but clearly in retrospect, we felt the presence of God on that communication every time that we had it with Parrish and with Pamela, And when Parrish and Pamela first came here to Huntington, I actually get a warm feeling right now thinking about when that happened. We met them with a high level of anxiety, nervousness. We met them at a restaurant in Huntington, and it was truly like the most nervous blind date you could have. And we met them and talked to them, and when they left to go back to their motel, those of us on the committee stayed there and looked at each other, and we almost could say right then that something was happening that was truly, from God. And as the weekend went on, we felt more and more like that. And so you asked me what that was like. It was an intimidating task with a lot of responsibility, and we felt God's presence on us every time we met. We felt the prayers of the congregation and on us every time. And we felt better and better and better every time we met about what our mission was, what our progress was, what our achievement was when we met and called Parrish. And every Sunday that I'm here, I feel even better.
And I've mentioned that to especially Carolyn Mankins, who was also on the committee. But we as a church really appreciate the responsibility that each of you. It probably, like you said, it wasn't easy probably at the beginning to feel that you had this responsibility. So we really sincerely appreciate that sacrifice, and I think everyone agrees that we made a great decision.
Thanks.
So,
and you know what, it truly was not a sacrifice. Even though I was not looking forward to it, once we started, it was entirely a pleasure to meet with the people on the committee and to do it. It ended up not being a burden at all. It was totally enjoyable every time we met.
But you met virtually only, right?
Met, well, let's see. I think over the entire time we were together, I think there were a couple of times we were able to get together face to face, because we started just before the pandemic, maybe just before the pandemic hit, and we were able to get together maybe just once or twice before, the pandemic scared us back into our houses.
Mm-hmm. And it made me curious. Did you ever serve on a PNC?
I was on a search committee for a youth director here about 30 years ago.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Ernest Thompson was here at the time, and that was a totally different process for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So not anything like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little more about church life.
Okay.
Who was the minister you most remember when you were very young?
Andy Bird and Andy Bird was here when I was very young, and I was friends with his children. And I remember him as an physically imposing minister, as well as a spiritually imposing minister. I may be wrong, but I remember him being very serious. Not a lot of. One time I was running in the church, which we do all the time now, right? Or not we, but it is done all the time in the church.
I know who does.
And I ran into him. I mean, physically ran into him, and he gently pulled me away from him and pulled my head back and said, "We don't run in the church." And so I still, every time I see someone run in the church, I remember being called down for running in the church. So things have changed now. But he was an imposing figure, Andy Bird was. I was friends with his children, and I remember him. And then Dr. Jones came. My dad was on the search committee for Dr. Jones.
Oh.
I think I have that right. I'm pretty sure I do.
Yeah.
Lynn Temple Jones came here. I'd have to look at the year, but I was a young person when he came, and I remember that, and that was certainly his presence in my family's life and in mine was completely transformational, for sure.
Wow. Do you have any funny stories from a Sunday church service?
Oh, wow. I'm not going to tell all of them. Yeah, I remember my grandparents, my grandmother especially, sat right there in the balcony under the stained glass window.
That direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I routinely sat with her, even though my parents might have sat somewhere else. I routinely sat with her, and I had over the course of many years as a young elementary and junior high school student, I had the awfulest crush on one of my friends here, one of my young adult friends here or young friends here at church, and so I would always get in the spot where I could see her, and try to make eye contact with her throughout the entire service, and anyway, she would have none of that, but I would always, that's what I remember about church, was always trying to make eye contact with her. And I remember a lot of things falling off the balcony and hitting, somebody down below. I remember Dr. Eddowes used to direct the choir from the balcony, the front row of the balcony in the middle up there.
Really? Okay.
He did. He would direct the choir from there. And I remember one occasion where he dropped his hymnal from there down onto the pew. I remember when Gray Hampton was preaching from the old pulpit right here at the old chancel, and began his sermon, and Eddie Wilcox. I don't know if you know Eddie Wilcox.
Well,
Eddie Wilcox was a young high school, maybe young college student sitting right up there in the balcony, and he interrupted Gray and asked if he could say something to the congregation.
Oh, okay.
Right before his sermon, and he gave a little message to the congregation right before that.
Okay.
Which was an interesting interlude. It was interesting. Of course, I remember, again, I mentioned Wardlaw and Purdue. They had a interesting Sunday service where a projector was set up in the choir loft, and Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Waters was playing over the loudspeaker system with slides on the slide projector going on, which, in 1967 or 8, whenever that was a little bit controversial for that to go on. And so changes in the regular worship service. I think Session had a meeting after that. It might not have been all that pleasant to go through, but not a lot of humorous things during worship, but a lot of different things that I can recall. A lot of very important, impactful things during worship, for sure.
That was my next question. We talked about, and I felt moved to ask you some of these things, but meaningful memories.
Yeah. Many meaningful memories in this church. It formed me as a young person, as an adult. This church made me and my family what we are today. The lessons that I learned from Sunday school teachers and Dr. Jones, all the way from the beginning with my parents, and the decisions that I made early on, this church has been responsible for all those. And my parents taught me from the beginning that you trusted God with everything, especially those things that are most important to you. And I've tried to remember that all the way through. So that's what this church family is for me, and constantly reminded of that. And Dr. Jones, when he was here, it was a big part of that.
Mm-hmm. So you've mentioned a few some people from the past who's made a lasting impression.
Yeah.
Are there some people you'd like to mention?
Oh, sure. I mean, I could name many. I mean, Dr. Jones for sure is at the top of the pyramid of people. Carl Gustafson was very important to me. Skip Seibel, obviously very important to me. Stephen Jones was very important to me when he was here. My mom and dad, my brother, those people were spiritual mentors to me in my life. There's people here today that I love being with, and I count on as my closest and best friends. I hate to start naming people because there's so many people that looking back have played crucial roles in my life, and certainly my wife and my kids, and today are still people that can lift me up at any time, and I know Parrish will be that for me.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And people yet to be named,
right?
Who I don't know yet.
Right. That's great. I appreciate you sharing that, by the way, and giving your feelings about that.
Sure.
What can you describe what your vision for the future was like maybe 50 years ago?
15 years ago?
50 years
50
ago.
years ago. I just wanted to have fun 50 years ago. I tell you the truth, in the simplest way. I mean, I still have the faith. I try to have the faith of a child, and then and now, I want church to be, the center part of Catherine and my life. Unfortunately, the pandemic's made it difficult, but I want church to not be a peripheral part of our life, not something that is just something that we do on occasion. I want it to be a central part of our life. I want it to be like our faith is, something that's central. I loved the times that we have things to do here and people to be with here. Vacation Bible School is a great time for us. I mean, I know it's a lot of work, but when we are here getting ready for Vacation Bible School and the time that we spend preparing for Vacation Bible School and going through Vacation Bible School is a awesomely enjoyable and rewarding time. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what your church should be to you, is a central part of your life where every day it plays a part of your existence. I don't mean you have to be working all the time, but you're either having fellowship or worship or ministering with your congregation to someone and with someone, and that's what I want church to be for all of us, and not a Sunday morning event. Mm-hmm. I know it can't be all encompassing, something you do 24/7, but I want it to be a central part of our lives, and that's what I envision for this church to be, is an increasingly important part of all our lives, and not a burden, but something we enjoy and that we want to be part of and that we look forward to. I think that would be great.
Mm-hmm. What is your vision for the future in the present time? You kind of already mentioned a lot of things about the ministry here, but
I want COVID to get over with. I want us all to feel safe and healthy, and to come back here and not have the concerns that we have now about being together. I understand, I'm a month on the other side of my second shot now, so I'm feeling more comfortable. I know everybody's not there yet, mm-hmm. but when we hopefully can all get there and we can all be together without the concerns that we have now, that's the first thing. And then we can all come back and feel free to be together. And that's the burden we have to get off ourselves first. Mm-hmm. And then we can reinitiate our programs and our ministries. I mean, to get back out to Dunlow and start working together, and to get back to the programs that we can start, Vacation Bible School and Sunday School, and just the things we need to be doing, Logos, and things we need to be doing so we can be together. And I mean, worship feels so good to be back in this room, in this building, and to be together. But I still look around and think I'm still missing so many families that just don't feel comfortable coming in here yet. But it'll come. God will take care of us, and it'll come.
Yeah. That's a hopeful message.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Logos, so I in these talks, especially with volunteers of Logos, I'm going to ask you about in a second. But I always like to plug Logos. because the plan is, in the fall, we should get it started back up. I put if the Lord willing and the creeks don't rise,
Yeah.
right? So we're going to resume this weekly program in the fall, probably starting about mid-August. This is a wonderfully rich program, mainly for the young people of the church, but it's intergenerational for all ages. So if you live in the Huntington area, we'd love for you to reach out and get some more information. We meet 4:30 to 7:45 every Wednesday throughout the school year. And as I said before, we should have a new website very soon, but there is a website I'll link in the description. More information about Logos can be found there for those interested. But Alan, what does Logos mean for you?
Well, again, it's almost like being in the PNC. It was something that I didn't necessarily want to be involved with, but it's, again, something that my wife and I thoroughly enjoy now that we're involved with it. We're table parents. We don't sit together. We're two different tables, which is, again, something that's natural now that we do it, and we sit with one other adult and some children that our grandchildren live away. Our children and grandchildren live away, and so we don't really have grandchildren that can give us that fix once in a while. So it's great to be with some young children, and you get to know their names, you get to know their personalities, you get to know what school they go to, you get to learn a lot about them when you eat dinner with them every week, week in, week out. That's tremendous to get to know some young children that you wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise to get to know. And then I also teach fourth grade Bible study to a group, which is a big challenge. Okay, a big challenge. But we have a team of about 13 other teachers. No, it's not that many, but it's a lot. So we can outnumber them if we have to.
It's funny, they don't realize usually that there's more of them than us.
That's right. If they realize that, there'd be a mutiny. But we teach that afterwards, and any time that you get in God's Word and you learn it in a way that you're going to teach it, you will find something and be blessed by it. And that's been the case every time we've learned something, even if it's at the fourth grade or fifth grade level. It doesn't make any difference what level you're learning at. You'll be blessed by God's Word, and that's happened every time. And so we've enjoyed that. And again, the people that I teach with are great, tremendous friends, and we've enjoyed doing that. And every week it's a blessing to be with the people that we're with and the kids that we're with, and to get to eat with young people and a friend at dinner every night is great. And it's, somebody's preparing the meal and cleaning up for you, and that's not a bad thing to get a meal that's prepared for you. So I'd encourage anybody to come and participate.
It'll be really refreshing, really nice when that comes back, and we're all pretty hopeful. I think that'll be back in some kind of form.
I hope so.
So really, to kind of sum up, I have one last question, and we've touched on a lot of this throughout the talk, but in general, can you say what role has church played for the spiritual growth of you and your family?
As I mentioned, my mom and dad taught me early on that what role God plays in your life from the beginning, and church is where you need to be to continue to reinforce that, and to continue to learn to trust that, and to learn more about God, and to learn how to live as a faithful Christian in your life. And I can't imagine going through life without that in your life. So many challenges with children and grandchildren, and the struggles of your daily walk, that if I didn't have God in my life and didn't trust Him with the things that are so important to me each day, I don't know how I'd get through it. And Catherine and I's marriage and our children, we're so blessed with the things we have, but every day there's challenges that I turn to God and say, help me through this, whatever this is, and I know that I can trust Him to get me through it. And I know that whatever God lays in front of me as a challenge, I can survive. and to serve Him in the way that this church serves God, and to love Him and to worship Him like our vision is exactly what church needs to be. And my mom taught me early on that walking across a dark lot, I'd get scared, and she'd say, just sing, God, take me through here, get me through this, and I still do that when I get in a dark place, and that's what this means to me, and hopefully it'll always be that.
That's very nice. Thank you for sharing. So that brings us to the end of our interview. If you have enjoyed our program, please like, share, put a comment down below. Tell us what you think. Let's keep the conversation going. We hope for this to be kind of a dialogue, really. Do you have any memories that you would like to share about our church, or if you're watching somewhere else, your church? Are there any suggestions for future topics? And as always, thank you, the viewer, for watching these videos. And many thanks also to our guest, Alan Morrison, a lifelong member of First Presbyterian Church of Huntington, West Virginia. I was very thrilled when Alan agreed to come and talk on this program and to get to know you a little better today. And we as a church really sincerely appreciate you being on this program and sharing your story with us. May the Lord bless you and your family and your loved ones. Alan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Nick Blaine. Enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, and thanks for what you're doing in this church as well.
Thank you.
Keep playing music.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.